Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Red Road Paranormal. My name is Christina Bloom. I'm one of your co hosts. I am a psychic medium, a member of the Adirondack Park Paranormal Society, and a paranormal researcher, and also of Alaskan heritage. Not really sure which part of Alaska, but Alaskan heritage. And I am not tribally affiliated, but I am part Native American. Take it away, Rez.
Hi everyone, Rez here. Member of Stockbridge Muncie Tribe, Ben Mohicans, paranormal investigator, cryptid investigator with a Wisconsin-based team, Cryptids and Anomalies in the Paranormal Society. And today we have some friends of ours that we met back at the hold on, what was it? The Great Lakes Paranormal Convention this year. And it is Gary Lonetree and Kimberly Lonetree. You guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, guys.
Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I'm an enrolled member of the Ho-Chunk Nation of Wisconsin, and I've had numerous lifelong experiences with paranormal and one Bigfoot experience that I know of.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's been interesting. The paranormal is still ongoing, and hopefully someday it'll either peter out or I'll peter out.
Okay.
Either way, we'll find out what it's about, I guess.
All right.
All right.
And I'm Kimberly Lonetree. I'm Gary's daughter and also a tribal member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. I have a lot of paranormal experiences on my end. Probably like one or two Bigfoot experiences. I have an alien experience as well.
Awesome.
And I am, yeah, and I am currently an independent booking agent and manager for a band here in Los Angeles, but also a few individuals in Wisconsin who are in the paranormal field. So I am very much into it, very excited about it, and look forward to hopefully a lengthy career in that. So, yeah.
Nice.
Very
Nice.
cool.
Awesome. So I know we've all had some, actually, Rez and I just the other day had a paranormal experience. So we did an investigation together. So that was kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah.
But I want to hear about your experiences. So, Gary, what do you want to tell us about first?
Well, the first thing I remember actually when I was a little boy, maybe 3 years old, and it's hard to believe we can have memories that far back. But I was at my uncle's house in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minneapolis area. And the adults were all in the kitchen, and there was a wall dividing the kitchen to the living room. And off the living room was a playroom where my cousins would play. And I was tired, so my mom took me out and laid me on my uncle's sofa and left. And as I was laying there, I saw in this room, standing in the doorway, a black figure. And it had these glowing red eyes, and it was human shaped, but it was staring at me, and it was moving back and forth, like side to side, like this, and looking at me at the same time. And for my little young mind at that time, that was terrifying because I didn't know what it was. First experience. And after that, it just seems like my whole life until now, I've had paranormal experiences with just strange stuff like that. I made myself sleep. I remember making myself go to sleep at that, watching that thing. I didn't want it looking at me, so I closed my eyes and I got falling asleep. But that was my first experience, and it really scared me being a little kid.
The glowing red eyes would have done it for me. Yeah, that would be scary. Yeah.
And it was totally black. You couldn't see any features, just black, like a person. And the way it was moving back and forth was weird too. Why was it moving like that, side to side? Like it was going from one foot to the other. That's what it seemed like to me. And I can remember it vividly to this day. And I've got a couple memories from when I was little. And one was my dad took me fishing. And so I've been a lifelong fisherman because of that. I love fishing. But I remember my first experience with Dad taking me out fishing. My dad was Ho Chunk, a full blood Ho Chunk, and in the other experiences is kind of a personal one with my older sister. When she left us, she ran away when she was about 16, and I was a little guy, and I went downstairs, asked her to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for me, and she was gone. And I remember that, just as well as I remember that black figure. So those three things from my childhood have stuck with me. And so that was my first experience with it. And then we moved to Texas, South Texas, and moved into an old ranch house, cattle ranch. And that place was just overly haunted. It was just crazy haunted. There was stuff going on all the time, manifestations of you think you'd see something and it wasn't really what you were seeing. Had it grab me one time, that was when I was about 15 years old, 15, 16, before we moved out of that house. And that really scared the bejeebers out of me when that thing grabbed me as it walked. I could hear it in my sister's room, which was next to my room. She was gone, spending a night at a friend's house, and I heard something sit on her bed and then get up. And it started walking. We had these old wood floors in this house. This is an old house, really
The
old
old
home.
creaky wood floors.
Yep. No insulation, just wood floors. And I just heard it walking, and I was like, oh, no, because I had my back turned to that doorway between the bedrooms. And I was just thinking, yeah, it's going to mess with me tonight. And sure enough, I walked by, stopped at the foot of my bed and grabbed my ankle. And boy, I jumped out of that bed real fast.
I could imagine.
I grabbed my blanket and went to my mom and dad's room, and I slept on the floor. And Dad asked me what happened. I said, that stupid thing touched me. And he didn't say anything more, and I just slept on the floor that night. So it's stuff like that happening. And that's where I had my Bigfoot encounter too, was down there. And you wouldn't think, South Texas, really, this is along the border. It's called the Rio Grande Valley. There's a chain of cities that run along the border, Mexican border down there. And we lived outside of the city of Harlingen, which is a pretty good sized city. It's about the size of La Crosse, Wisconsin. And we lived outside on a little cattle ranch. And again, this was when I was a teenager. And it was just me and Dad at home. My sister was gone. Mom was at work. Mom worked nights in a restaurant. And I was in the back bedroom, which had windows on two sides, all windows. And the houses down there sit on these little pillars, like a concrete pillar that keeps it off the ground further because of flooding, hurricanes and stuff come through. So the windows are pretty high up. And I just hear something coming from the back area of the house, which is where the cow pastures were. And I hear it walking up to the house. I'm thinking, you know what? I think one of those dang cows got out, because the cows get out all the time. And we're going to have to go put it back in, because when they get out, you can't let them roam, because they'll go down the road. Somebody will hit them, or people down there will steal the cattle too at that time. So I was just laying there, and it was walking up towards the house, and it was walking towards where I was in my sister's room, which was that back bedroom. I was laying on her bed watching TV. TV was right below that set of windows where the thing was walking up towards. Like I said, initially I thought it was a cow, so I was nothing about it. But as it got closer, I noticed it was only, sounds like two legs, like a person walking, but real heavy. And then heavy breathing came with it. It was, like that. He was walking up to the house, and I'm like, that ain't no cow. Cows don't make that sound.
Right.
I'm laying there, and I'm starting to get panicky, like, what in the heck is this? And it's still walking up to the house, and it ends up walking up to the window, and I've got the TV underneath, and I'm watching the TV, trying with all my might not to look up at the window. I don't want to see what's there. I was like, what the heck is this? And so I caught a glance in it, it was at the top of the window, where you see this much of the face like that. And it was a face. I was like, oh, crap. I couldn't move. I was laying there, my dad's in the other side of the house in the living room. So I finally got the gumption up where I could hear him using old. You can see where I come from down south with the words I use. But anyway, I got that confidence up, and I squirmed off the bed, got on the floor, and was crawling on my belly out into my bedroom, which was the next room. Once I got out of sight where I couldn't see that window, and this whole time this thing's standing there breathing, just going, ugh. And I get out to my room and I could stand up. Finally, I could be able to run to the front of the house where my dad was in the living room. And I said, Dad, there's something out back of the house. It ain't right. And it was stinky too. That was the other part I forgot to mention. Is that there was a stink that came with it. Just a smell like garbage and wet animal. And cows don't smell like that either. Cows smell like cow poop and grass.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
I live in Wisconsin. I know what cows smell like.
yeah.
Right.
And anyway, so I told my dad, I said, there's something out there. And it's big and it's breathing. They looked at me. I don't know what it is. You know, here I'm a young kid. You know, I don't know what's going on. So Dad says, okay. You know, like I said, Dad's a ho-chunk. So initially he thought it was what they call up here, called a wakunk, which is like a skinwalker type of thing. So he says, okay, we know how. He said, I know how to deal with this. So he grabbed his rifle, and we went out on the front porch. Man, this front porch went around the full side of the front of the house, and we had all these cats and all these dogs out there, and none of the animals were around. Otherwise, they're always on the porch. So right away, you know, I'm thinking, you know, where's our animals? And Dad's thinking the same thing. He says, where's the dog? He's not worried about cats, but he's worried about where's the dogs at. So he starts calling the dogs. And then I start calling the dogs too. And it's a good, at least 10, 15 minutes. And we're starting to get worried. Dad's saying, you know, this isn't right. You know, where are the dogs at? They're always around the house. Well, we had this long driveway and it was lined with palmettos anyway. And here at the edge of the light, here finally come the dogs, but they're all crawling on their bellies with their tails between their legs. And the strange thing about it too is that they were in a straight line, like a skirmish line. And these dogs, and they're just crawling up and they're whimpering, and they get closer to the porch where they finally see us and get more confident, and then they stand up and come to us on the porch. So Dad right there, he's thinking, you know, I don't know what this is, what's going on. He thinks, you know, maybe it is totally what he thought was a wakunk, but I don't know what it is. Never had this experience any time in my life. So dogs are there. Dad gets more confident. I get more confident. We walk around the side of the house, going towards the back. And now the dogs are following us. So that's kind of was my clue that things were not as scary as they were. And we get around to the back of the house and you could still smell it, but it was gone. And so Dad didn't know what to make of it. He, you know, thought maybe somebody was, being native, they do stuff like that, send spirits and whatever. He thought maybe something like that was going on. And I never really thought of it that way. And I let my dad know that too. You know, I thought, I think that was something other than what you're thinking it was, because I saw it, I could smell it, and I heard it, and it walked up the house, and it sounded like a person walking, but just big. So all these years, you know, I doubted myself on what did I experience until I got a little older, you know, and moved up here to Wisconsin and started doing a little more research into the Bigfoot phenomenon, and found out that Texas is full of Bigfoot stories, even as far south as where I come from. I was so surprised to hear that. So surprised. I couldn't believe I had that encounter. And haven't had one since, but that was a really scary thing for me. Yeah, because we lived out in the country. There was nobody, there wasn't a neighbor right next door we could go for help. I had to get something. If I was at home alone, I was alone. And all I had was a little BB gun. So that wasn't going to do nothing.
Yeah, no, that's just going to tick them off.
Yeah.
Might not even feel that.
So yeah, that was a really my Bigfoot experience. And it scared the bejeebers out of me, that thing. You know, I still, to this day, I can still smell that smell that it had. So I know if I smelled it out here, like I used to hunt up here in Wisconsin, I'd be out deer hunting, and go turkey hunting, grouse hunting, and all that type of stuff. I never ran into anything like that again up here. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
No, I have a question now with the culture and the whole Chuck Nation. Do they have any stories of Bigfoot interacting with them in the past? Anything like that, like a lot of the other tribes do?
Yeah, I've asked some of my elders, and I get different stories from depending on who I'm talking to. I asked my Choco, who's my grandfather, and he said that the Ho Chunk way they would build their chipotle or wigwams, the way they're built was because the Bigfoot used to come through the villages and they would squash people in their lodges. So a wigwam is built to be flexible. So they had a harder time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talked to another elder, and he said that, but they're also a spirit being as well. They can come into our realm, and they can go into the spirit realm as they wish. And he said that they used to come into our lodges when they do ceremonies and participate in ceremonies. They would sit there and sing and participate in whatever was going on in the lodges at that back in the day. Then I talked with another elder and said, yeah, again, they kind of all agree with each other, but they got different viewpoints. And then one elder said that at one time our tribe went to war with them over resources, and they wiped them all out in this area except for one. They found this one hiding in a cave in Tunnel City, Wisconsin, and he said that they talk, they have language, and they can speak. And he said that one Bigfoot told those men that were there, the warriors that were there to kill it, that they would be back when later, getting towards the later days, towards the end of time, that the Bigfoot would be back in the area. So, and some of my relatives have seen them. I just never seen one up here. But some of my relatives have talked to me about. One of my relatives was out deer hunting, and he saw a mother with her baby, and she just walked right by him carrying the baby, and that was really, just changed his whole viewpoint on these stories too. That yeah, these things are real. Our elders aren't telling us stories just to be telling us stories. They're telling us stuff that's really going on. So that's what I found out so far.
Interesting. Awesome.
Yeah, kind of when you talk about them speaking, kind of makes you think about some of the stuff I've done research on, where I heard about other tribes who have communicated with Bigfoot through their own tribal tongue, and they're able to communicate back and forth because they understood what they were saying from that local tribe's language.
Yeah, and the more I study it, the more I find that that's true. Throughout that, tribes are saying they're just like another tribal people.
Yep.
But they have we'll trade with them at times. At times they've gone to war with them. Like I said, the Ho Chunk story was they went to war with them at one time too.
Yep.
So I was just surprised to be hearing all this. Just really piqued my interest in what I experienced. Why was it there to see me? Why did it come to my house? It's just weird.
Why it was drawn to you for a reason.
Yeah, that's why I keep thinking about that. Why did it come see me? And as big as it was, it could have just ripped that part of the house apart and got to me if it wanted me. So yeah, the more I think about it, it's like, what was the reasoning for that?
Maybe it was looking over you.
Maybe. I know my experience with Bigfoot has been that it protects me. So, I grew up outside of Lac du Flambeau, and I would be out in the woods, and sometimes everything was fine, and at other times I would be filled with terror and have to head for home. But I always felt like I always felt like I was being watched, and I always felt like it was a guardian watching me. But they would like send me fear energy if there was, say, a bear or a mountain lion or whatever in the area, where it would want me to get out of there. It would fill me with fear, so I would leave. But I always felt like I was being watched and protected. So I don't know, that's been my experience with it, but I haven't ever actually visibly seen one. So I'm
Well, that was
assuming.
the
Yeah.
only time when it was very quick, very short, and that was more than enough for me.
I want to hear Kimberly's experience.
Yeah, so I was living out on the East Coast in Rhode Island. And again, I don't know if it was Bigfoot or something else, but I was exploring the Lad School area, which is a known haunted location in Rhode Island. And there's walkways going around the school, a lot of high grassy areas and forest. And so, it was probably around 9 o'clock at night. I was with, at that time, my husband at the time and a friend of ours. And we were just walking on the path talking about whatever. And I started hearing something in the woods right next to us walking at pace with us. So I was like, what is that? I listened a little bit longer and I got kind of this feeling that something was with us. So I stopped, and that made my ex-husband and our friend stop too. And so, when they stopped, when all of us were all stopped, the footsteps stopped. And so I was like, did you guys hear that? I don't know. Let's just keep walking. So we kept walking. A few more steps and started hearing it again. Something walking in the woods with us. And it was really audible. There's leaves on the ground and, brush, whatever. So they're, kind of stomping on that, and, it's loud enough. And finally, the friend just goes, yeah, I hear that. What is that? And we stop. The footsteps stop again. So he just goes, well, if it happens again, I'll make sure it doesn't follow us. And we're walking. We hear it again. And he makes 2 stomps down on the ground real hard. And the thing didn't follow us afterwards. It just stayed where it was. I don't think it even went further into the woods or anything because I didn't hear any more footsteps. But, I told them, I was like, I got this really eerie feeling that was something watching us in there. And I tried looking. I tried to see what I could see in the woods, and there's nothing I could see. So whatever it was clever enough to, at least keep out of sight. And so that, I kind of chalked it up to, like I said, a possible experience with Bigfoot. Could be something else, could just be like a person, like a weird person walking in the woods. But I
I
also
think
was just
that's
kind of like,
almost
how would they?
scarier, right? Like a
Yeah,
weird
that is
person.
scarier.
That's like
Yeah.
scarier than Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Some creepy stalker, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
Right.
saying Bigfoot would be
Yeah.
like relief compared to a
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm
that,
sorry, go ahead.
no, but then I think about that and I'm like, it was really dark outside. So if someone's walking around in the woods, how are they not tripping on things? There could be just branches and other things in the way. They seemed pretty steady and knew where they were going. So I don't know what it is, but I had a lot of weird experiences happen out there. I know my dad kind of touched on some other paranormal experiences that he had. And one that really pops out in my mind is when I was younger, our relatives from Texas, my dad's eldest sister's kids, were visiting, and we were playing hide and seek. My cousin Kelsey and my brother, they're born 8 days apart, ended up being the hiders, and then my cousin Colin, who was 4 years younger than me, and we decided to be the seekers. So we're counting to 100. They're hiding wherever they are, and we're in my parents' house. Dad's in my brother's room, gaming, and my mom's in the kitchen cleaning. So we split up after we're done counting. Colin takes, I believe he took like the front bedroom, the bathroom, and the living room, dining room, kitchen area, and I took the back bedrooms and the back bathroom. And I go into my parents' bedroom. There's a pile of blankets sitting on top of the bed. And, I sneak in kind of like, I bet John's in here. I bet they're hiding in here. And I see my brother pop up from behind the pile of blankets, but it was so quick that it was just kind of like this, I don't know, like I saw hair all across the face. So I thought, okay, it moved so quick that maybe I just like blurred the image that I saw. So I got a little confused, was a little freaked out, but I was like, that definitely looked like John. It's wearing his shirt, his hair. Um, must be him. So I'm like, John, I know you're in here. And I sneak up to the bed and I jump up on the bed. Hear nothing's on the other side of the pile of blankets. So I just kind of sat there for a second, like stunned. How is this possible? I just saw him pop up. I look on the other side of the bed. I look under the bed. I looked in the closet behind me. I looked in the bathroom. I was like, what is happening right now? I don't know what I just saw. So I started getting this, deeper eerie feeling and was kind of freaked out at that point fully, and went into my brother's bedroom, looked around in there, but I just couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, what was that? What did I see? I head back into the hallway and my cousin Colin comes back to report that he hasn't seen anybody. And I just go, well, let's check this next area. And as I'm saying that, we hear screaming from the basement and running. So, we're like, what is that? We run over to the basement door. My brother and Kelsey come barreling out, and Kelsey's just bawling. So she's got tears all over her face. My brother's trying to keep his tears back and he's huffing and puffing. And we're like, what happened? What's going on? Why are you guys so scared? And my brother says, we saw somebody in the basement. So I said, okay, describe what they look like. And John said, well, we went down there, if I'm recalling this right. We went down there to hide. And, we had the lights on. We thought this is the perfect place to hide. And then we decided, well, if we turn off the lights, that's going to make it even harder for them to find us because they're going to think nobody's down here. And they turned off the lights. Kelsey ran into something in the basement. And so they decided, okay, yeah, let's turn the lights back on. Turn the lights back on. Here was my brother staring at himself, laying on the floor on his stomach in the same clothes. He was wearing I think it was like a red sweatshirt and blue sweatpants. But the face was covered in hair. It was like as if there was no facial features at all. Like it was just looking at the back of his head, but all around the head. And so it's like laying there kind of, with its head to the side like this. And they just stared at it for, moments, turned the light back off, turned it back on, and the thing was gone. So that's what made them freak out and run upstairs. So when they said that, I just was like, oh my God, I had this just kind of like feeling of absolute fear at that point. And I told them I saw the same thing in my parents' bedroom and described it to them and said, I don't know what it is, but, something's in the house with us right now. And later on, another one of our cousins complained about seeing the same thing on her own as well. I just couldn't explain what it was. Again, it goes back to kind of some stories that we heard growing up, whether, it could be someone practicing some bad medicine and, sending some sort of spirit, or maybe, sending themselves, but like changing their form to, look like somebody in the family. And that wasn't the only time that I experienced that. I had seen my brother walk around in the house. I've seen my grandpa walk around the house when he was still alive and he was at his own house. Ended up calling him and calling my grandmother who lives across the street and freaking out, just like, I don't know what to do. Something's in the house with me. And, they rushed over and kept me company. But, and I know mom and dad have had those experiences too. I don't know, Dad, if you have any recollections of that and want to share that, but I know that mom at least has expressed to me that she's seen John walking around the house, and he was at like a friend's house. He wasn't even at the house at all. So,
That is so interesting that they would
yeah,
replicate a family member.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really eerie.
Yeah.
It showed itself to me one time, like looked like my wife, but in a shadow form.
Yeah,
She had gone to work, and I sat up and I was up already, getting ready to go to work myself. And I looked at the foot of my bed, and there's my wife's shadow standing there staring.
yeah.
And then it just dissipated, just poof, it was gone.
That is so
And
weird. Like I've never heard this before.
we,
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
my cousin had a similar experience in one of the houses that I grew up in. It was down in Bentonville, Illinois. It was my cousin Vinny, and my sister Julie was living with us at the time. And he ran upstairs because a storm was coming in to shut all the windows, and he could sit at the top of the stairs where my parents' bedroom would be. Sees a woman with a little baby in her arms. Goes, "Oh, hey, Kate, Julie, you close the windows, I'll get the rest." Gets right back downstairs, and there's Julie in the living room with my niece. Freaked him right out. A few weeks later, he had another experience, and that was it. He was done. He moved out.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you guys can't move away from it though. Like it follows you.
yeah, that's what, I've gathered over the years, is that there's something that follows our family.
Yeah.
Uh, because just like when my dad passed away, my sister ended up, she bought the house. She bought the house out from us. We all were, he left it to all of us kids, me and my sister, and then Kim and John, my kids. So my sister bought the house, and we were in there moving stuff in, and I was upstairs, and my sister and her boyfriend, he's Menominee, and they were upstairs too. And I heard two men talking. I was opening my dad's closet in his bedroom, which is upstairs. It's like a tri-level, like a split level ranch. Well, it's not
Okay.
like that's what it is. And anyway, I open up dad's closet, and he had two double closets on one wall. And I hear two men talking, and it sounds like they're talking downstairs, but we're all upstairs. So I closed the closet door, and I went out, looked, and there was nobody down there, down like the breezeway, the entryway. And I thought that was really weird, because my dad was always complaining about when he was living in the house that he was having stuff like knock on his doors inside the house and waking him up at night to where he was having trouble sleeping. Um, and then he got sick, and then he ended up moving in with us. But anyway, but prior to that, he was always having some issues with something in the house bothering him, and he would tell me about it. So I'd go visit with him every so often, of course, and nothing really happened when I was around except for after he passed, and I was upstairs and I heard those two men having a conversation, a loud conversation. It wasn't like whispers. It was like a regular conversation that I couldn't understand what they were saying. Uh, and
Yeah.
that was the only time I've ever had an experience in my dad's place. My sister lives there now, but she doesn't really like to talk about that kind of stuff anymore. So I don't know if she's having experiences or not.
Okay.
Um, but when Dad moved in with us, he lived with us for a little while before he got his house, and then he came back to live with us to pass away. He wanted to be with family when he passed. So I love my dad, so he moved in with us, and took care of him. But yeah, when he was here, we'd still have stuff like for a while there. He lived in our basement, and one night he was down there watching TV, and I was upstairs. Wife was gone at church, and the kids were with her at church, and I was in the living room. The basement door opened up at the top of the steps. So I thought my dad was coming out, and there was like this little black midget figure. That's all I can describe it as. It came out, and it was standing at the end of the kitchen table, looking at me, kind of doing like a weird little dance. So I got up and I said, "Dad." And he answered me from downstairs. He said, "What?" I said, "What's going on up here?" I said, "I saw something come out of the basement, open the door, and it's like a little figure, and it was dancing around." And he said, "I don't know, but there was something down here that we kept trying to pull my blanket off last night when I was sleeping." So he never told me that. So I said something, and he said, "I thought you were coming downstairs. That's why the door opened up." And I said, "No, I've been out here. I'm sitting on the sofa watching TV." Well, a few nights after that, we're laying in bed, and we had this dresser that we got in Korea. I was stationed in Korea I did 2 tours of duty over there. And my wife is Korean. So that's why Kim looks Asian. But we're laying in bed, and I hear that dresser had these metal handles on it, the swing handles or chest of drawers. And they're just going nuts. They're going real loud. And then woke me up, and I'm looking at them. As soon as I looked at it, they stopped. Then all of a sudden I hear my dad downstairs yelling, "Get out of here. Get out. What are you doing here? Get out of here." So I woke up the wife and I said, "Hey, something's going on." And she hears Dad downstairs yelling at something too. And one side of the basement was where we was storing all of our stuff. So we had boxes and things there. And Dad was living on the other side where we had TV and everything where he was at. And he said, we went downstairs and he said, "Somebody was down here." He said, that's what he was yelling at. He said, "I was telling us whatever it was to leave." And he said, he woke up and it was pulling the blanket off of him. He said the blanket was just coming off real slow, but at the same time as when our dresser was making that sound, those things were, each one of them on that chest of drawers was going up and down like that, real violently, loud. It wasn't soft, it was real loud. And then he said, "Yeah," he said, "I saw somebody on the other side of the basement trying to hide in those boxes." And of course, there was nobody there. And then after that, that's when Dad, he moved back upstairs. He wouldn't sleep down there anymore. And he moved back upstairs.
Can't really say I blame him.
Yeah. But I guess it was bothering him for a while to keep pulling his blankets off him
Okay.
for whatever reason, what I thought that was about. But when we first moved in this house, it was brand new built. It's not like somebody lived here before. But I was at work, and after I just moved in, my wife calls me at work. I work for my tribe. And I was at work, and she calls me. She says, "There's somebody in the house." And look, "What are you talking about?" So I heard, and she's panicking. She's like, "I heard somebody walking up from the basement on the steps. They didn't come out the door, but she said, I heard somebody walking." And so I said, "Well, don't worry about it. It's probably nothing." But that's when we first moved in here, the first thing we experienced, I guess you could say, is that my wife calling me with that incident. She said somebody was walking up the steps from the basement. We got wood steps, of course. So, ever since then, I've kind of been a little wary. I think, said, well, it's probably because something's following us, follows the family, because my aunties and uncles, all on the Ho Chunk side, have these issues with these spirits that come around and bother the family, do different things. We got all kinds of stories. If you sat down with my family, you'd be surprised at what comes out.
So when
Yeah, it
does the
sounds
book
like
come out?
right? I was gonna say, kind of sounds like a trickster to me.
Yeah,
Just something
crazy.
trying to get attention and play with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just does stuff like that. Like now I'll hear, after Dad passed away, I used to hear old-timey music, like ragtime music
Okay.
in the house at night. And I thought it was just me. So my son was here, John, and I started hearing it. So I woke him up. I said, "Do you hear that?" And he says, "Yeah." And he says, "It's coming out of," well, Kim wasn't living with us, but he says, "It's coming out of Kim's room." So he went to her room and he stood outside the door. I'm watching him. And he says, "Yeah, I can hear the music too." Open the door, nothing. So that went on for a while, where we would hear this old-timey music. And I would hear it. My wife, she's one of those people, she lays down, she's out. She's asleep. She don't hear nothing.
I'm jealous, I have to say.
Right.
I'm one of those people, I got to lay there for a while and think about stuff, and then I'll eventually fall asleep. So, but now recently I've been hearing more modern type of music, not every night. And what I found out precedes it too is I always was hearing a thought one night, especially I thought somebody came home, one of my kids, either Kim or John, because they were both she was living in Toma at the time, my son was living in Madison. And I heard the front door open and shut, and I thought, it was my son coming home. So I was laying there in bed and just waiting to have him say, you know, hey, mom, dad, I'm home, or something like that. And no. And then I got up, checked, no, there was nobody in the house. So I went back to bed, and subsequent nights after that is when I started hearing that old timey music. So I pay attention to that now. If I hear that, and I've heard that a number of times, it sounds like somebody's coming in the house. So it's like it announces itself, saying, okay, I'm here. Now you're going to start experiencing stuff. Which is, I don't know why I would do that, but it's strange.
You tried smudging the house at all or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, we my wife will actually, she's like the Korean, so they believe in putting salt around the house. And so she salts every so often too, to when she starts noticing it, then she'll salt. If I notice it, she don't care. But if she notices it, then she'll go.
As long as it leaves her alone, she's good, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to say too, Dad just reminded me of a whole bunch of stories, same thing in the house. And the most recent time that I believe there's an entity that is on the land too. And I think that it's strange because like my mom, my brother and I haven't talked about, you know, like where we thought the origins were until one day my mom just goes, I think it comes from this corner of the basement. And my brother and I looked at her, we were like, yeah, that's the feeling we get too. So I think there's something that's been there for a very long time because it all used to be woods over there. But last time it got really crazy was when I was visiting in 2019. I just lost two of my cats. One to a car accident, the other one to old age. And I was living in Nashville at the time. So I drove the 10.5 hour drive up to Reedsburg and just needed some time with my family to just recollect my emotions and my mental health because I was like really, really struggling with the deaths. And so 2 weeks in, I started kind of getting this heavy feeling like, okay, it's coming around. It's a very distinct feeling. Dad knows what that is too, because he was getting it the same day too. It's like almost like a darkness, coming over the inside of the house. And it could be as bright as, the brightest day outside, but you just feel cold and dark in there. So, I'm home alone. Parents are at work. And I hear what sounds like, and I have like a bottle of Topo Chico here, but like that slam down on the kitchen table. I'm sitting in the recliner chair, so I recline back and I look over and I don't see anything amiss. I don't see anything else moving. I don't hear anything else. So I just kind of straightened back up and I was like, all right, guess it's coming around. And, went about my day. Was hearing like little things here and there, what I call like the ankle crack, which sounds like, somebody walking through the hallway. And we always hear it like kind of in the hallway. But like when your ankle cracks, it makes kind of a loud pop, right? So we hear that. And then just some movement kind of in the basement and, other parts of the house. And so I was like, all right, I just got to get ready for this. Don't know what it's going to do, but obviously if it's ramping up like this, it's got something in store. So my mom gets home. We had a massage appointment scheduled. So we went to the other side of town, went to our massage appointment. I was the first one in. So I finished my session. And as I'm sitting there, Dad calls me and he goes, hey, did you leave the TV on? I said, no, I haven't watched TV all day. So I don't know why it would be on. He said, well, I walked up to the house and my curtains were open in my bedroom and the TV was on. And Dad, I don't know if it was like a news channel or something, because Grandpa used to watch the news a lot. Grandpa died in my room. So that would be odd enough for me anyways, because I don't typically watch the news. But yeah, so he walks up, he sees that, and he's thinking, all right, she must have left it on. I'm going to turn it off. opens the door, walks in, and then I believe you said that you didn't hear anything coming from the TV, but you still went into the bedroom to go
So
turn it off.
the TV was off because when I went in there, when I came home, the lights were on in your room and the TV was on. When I came in and I checked, I was going to go shut it off. Then the lights were off in your room and the TV was off.
Yeah. So he was, kind of like, what the heck? What's going on? And I told him, I said, no, it's around, I sensed it earlier today, and guess we'll just see what's going on. Dad's like, yep. So we get back from the appointment and, more noises throughout the night. My dog Potato was with me, and she was on edge all day, like hair standing up, and she was growling, and she'd like kind of lose it a little bit sometimes and run out into the living room and bark. But she was like really upset. She was trying to stay by my side and I think trying to protect. And finally Mom and Dad go to bed. It's probably about 11:30 at night when I heard somebody come in through the front door. So I hear the deadbolt unlock. I hear the doorknob unlock. Somebody turn the doorknob, open the door, and take 2 steps into the house. So the front door to the house is on the other side of my bedroom wall. So you hear everything. And Tato flips out. She gets up off the bed, jumps down, runs over to where the door is, and she doesn't get close to it, but she's standing there barking and her hair is standing up. And so I'm thinking in my head, like, oh God, somebody broke into the house, because my brother has work the next morning. He was living in Madison, I think. And so I was like, that would be odd for him to be here. I didn't have anything on me that I could fight off an intruder. So I just was like, I got to get up because my dog's out there barking. And as soon as I get over there, I see the front door is completely locked, deadbolt, everything. Nobody was inside the house. And so, I'm standing there just scratching my head. And my dad yells out from the bedroom. He goes, who was that? I was like, you heard that too? So it woke you up, and then you got up out of bed.
So I said, Dad hears that. I've heard that more than once.
Yeah. And that's crazy. And so, yeah, he comes out from their bedroom, walks down the hallway. We check around. We check all the locks. I open the basement door, but I was so creeped out that I was like, I'm not going down there, but I'm going to just at least look down there. And nothing. So we didn't have any explanation for it and just went back to bed. Well, I slept very spottily that night, and by the time 5:30 a.m. came around, I think it was around that time, Mom and Dad were getting ready to leave. I think both of you were working at the House of Wellness that day. So I kind of was woken up out of a dead sleep. So whenever the spirit comes around, that kind of typically happens to me, where I'll be woken up out of a dead sleep and just in terror immediately. So I woke up and I was like, why am I wide awake? This thing is wanting me to be wide awake right now because it's going to do something. So I'm desperately trying to fall back asleep. I, had Potato with me, and I was like, just trust that this is gonna be fine. My parents have a dog too, Sunshine. But when it comes around, the spirit, she usually hides under the bed. She kind of keeps away from it. And so I'm listening to them for about 5 minutes, and then they leave, and I'm like, oh God, what am I gonna do? I'm panicking at this point, still trying to fall back asleep. And within a couple minutes, I started hearing what sounded like a tea kettle going off. And I'm thinking, that's strange. Why would Mom, have a tea kettle going on if she's not coming back? And it gets louder and louder. And I hear a break in the sound, as if someone's taking a breath. And it gets louder and louder. And then it's just turning into a moaning sound, like someone in pain. And at that moment, I was like, nope. I ripped the blankets off of me. I put both of my feet on the ground, and it stopped immediately, stopped making the sound. And I said, nope, turned on all the lights, went around the house. I, was quick thinking, I can't leave Sunshine here. I can't leave Potato here. How do I get somebody back here? Because I don't want to be in this house alone. And I call my grandmother first. She's across the street. Dead signal. Then I'm like panicking. Okay, call dad. Call dad. Dead signal. I tried 3 times for each person and just dead signal every time. I even like tried to wait like a little bit so that, you know, maybe there's some interference or something going on, and nothing. I couldn't get through. Finally, I get through to dad, and he's like halfway to work, and I'm like, you know, can you come back? Or, you know, is there no possibility of that? Because it's starting to get crazy. It's doing this. And dad's like, yeah, I can't really turn around right now and come back. And so I was like, yeah, that's fine. Said, I've been trying to get a hold of grandma, and I don't want to leave the dogs here. You know, I just feel real bad, and she's probably, you know, still sleeping. And he says, well, just try her again. Just keep trying to call her. And I finally get through to her. She answers, you know, she's sleeping, and I said, I need you to come over here. She said, why don't you just come over here? Why don't you bring the dogs over here? I said, first off, if I try to get sunshine out, blah, 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 it's this whole thing. And she agreed to come over. So I picked her up, brought her over, and she slept on the couch. So, you know, I finally went back to bed and fell asleep for an hour. And then I must have woken up at around 7:30. And I heard somebody getting water out of the water dispenser that my parents have in the dining room. Thought that's odd, because my grandmother is a pretty strict, like, Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, like that's what she drinks. So I was like, that's odd, you know, and she's getting it out of that water dispenser. I don't really understand. And so I went back to bed, woke up another hour later, got up, and I went to her and I was like, did you get water this morning? Like, no, I was sleeping. I was like, okay. But you could feel that whatever it was going away now. It was starting to leave and go back to where it came from. So I was like, okay, all right, you know, at least like it's leaving now and I don't have to worry about it. But that was like one of the scariest experiences I've had. And it, you know, it used to do that more often growing up, but it's kind of tapered off, and every once in a great while it'll like really ramp up and show up like that. But dad talking about the voices in the basement and, you know, movement in the basement and stuff, like I heard the old timey music too. Dad's got military things that he keeps in the basement, like items that he collects. And I'm down there doing laundry one day, and I hear what sounded like, you know, being a musician. So like the melody was like galloping. So it sounded like horses running, you know, cavalry music or something. And I was just like, that's odd. Where is this coming from? This is like really strange. I've never, you know, heard this, but it also wouldn't make sense in our house, because why would we have something that would make that type of music? And so I decided I'm going to follow the sound, and it took me over to dad's military items. And there was this liner, a helmet liner, that was laying on the ground. I thought to myself, maybe there's some sort of music box type thing laying underneath it. And I pick it up, and there's nothing. The thing was like, it's thin. So I just was like, what the heck is going on? But the sound was coming from that. And yeah, that blew my mind. So I went upstairs, talked to my mom about it. Mom dismissed it, just like dad was saying, unless it happens to her. And then she's like, oh, you know, but I, you know, just like, I just heard this down there. I don't understand what it is. And growing up, when my grandpa was still alive and living with us, I'd hear him turn the TV on downstairs. But then there were times when he had already gotten up and he was doing other things, and I'd still wake up out of a dead sleep, and I'd hear, you know, somebody talking downstairs in the basement through the vents. I'd just like lay there and listen. I'd be like, what are they saying? Is it like a news channel? What's going on? And as soon as I would move my head up off the pillow, it would stop. And no matter if I put my head back down on the pillow, tried, you know, like different positions, like to try to hear, you know, sounds from the basement, nothing. It'd be dead silent. And then after he moved out of the basement, I was still hearing it. So I'd still wake up. And there was one day when I was like, I'm going to lay here for 5 minutes. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to try to understand what it's saying. And you just can't. There's, in the paranormal field, they talk about these entities that, they're speaking, but they're probably speaking like backwards or in some sort of language that we can't understand. But I heard talking in the basement, and I'm just like, I can't understand anything they're saying. I should be able to hear it because they're talking loud enough, but I couldn't understand a word. And then as soon as I lifted my head off the pillow, it was gone. And I was like, I know that nobody's down there. I know there's no TV down there. No, there's no radio, nothing. So why is it doing that? But yeah, Dad just reminded me of all that. And
Wow. Above
Yeah.
and beyond all of that, I have to say I love the fact that you named your dog Potato.
I know. Yep, she's over there laying on a pile of couch covers right now, dead asleep. Yep.
I love that. I just had to say that. But wow,
Thank
I was
you.
between you two and your stories, I have been on and off goosebumps this entire conversation. And
Yeah.
I see ghosts. I do
Yeah.
this. But wow, I've not had experiences overall that have been that unnerving, I guess. So I've been really
That's what I said.
fortunate.
If you talk to our family, our Lonetree side of the family, that everybody in our family has this kind of stuff going on all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're making me want to come hang out for a weekend at your house and crash on the
Right?
couch.
Yeah.
I'm bringing recording equipment. That's what I'm doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm bringing some toys with. We'll see how active they are.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. Okay, there's one more story I want to hear, Kimberly. Aliens.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I said aliens, more specifically a UFO, which, again, could be anything depending on who you are and what you believe. But I was living in Boston at the time, going to Berklee College of Music, and laying in my bed one day, just looking out the window up at the sky. And I saw what looked like kind of like a boomerang. So it's like this, but it was white. And I thought, it's a reflection on the window, right? Moving around, looking, trying to see if it'll, move with my movement. And it wasn't. It was stationary in the sky. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm looking at what quite possibly is a UFO. And watched it for about 2 or 3 minutes. Just kind of boggled, like, what could that be? Could it be, like a new type of weather balloon, or, they have, some new technology that the government's using or whatever. But finally, after like 2 to 3 minutes, the thing just went and like just zipped out of view super fast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I legit just saw a UFO. So I kept it kind of to myself because I was like, I don't know if any of my friends would believe me, if anybody else would believe me. And like maybe a night or two later, I was going to a party in another part of town with a bunch of friends of mine. And I get there, and one of my friends, who's a tour manager living in Milwaukee now, he was telling us all, hey, I had this really crazy experience the other day. I need to tell you guys about it. And so I had this feeling that what he was going to say was exactly the same as what I was going to say. But I just listened, and he said, I saw a UFO in the sky. I was looking up at the sky, just minding my own business. And then this thing did this. And my face like lit up, jaw dropped. And I said, Brian, I had the same exact experience. This happened to me too. And both of us just lit up, and we're like talking about it, going back and forth. And I couldn't believe it. It was just the craziest thing. I've never experienced anything else like that since. But I think, Dad, you might know a little bit more about this too. But John expressed to me that he was driving one night, and like all of the just like all the lights and everything in his car turned off. Something like went overhead of him and everything turned off. And then they were kind of like, just like confused about what was going on. And then everything turned back on eventually. And he was like, what the heck was that? So I think that was John's UFO experience, my brother.
That was the same
yeah.
night that saw the triangle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you should tell yours, because yours was similar too.
Yeah, I sent this report into MUFON, and they never did get back to me to interview. But like, I was in the Air Force. I was in law enforcement, but I worked closely with security guys on their different air bases. And so I knew what the aircraft were. I've seen U-2s, I've seen SR-71s, seen everything that was out there. And when I didn't see it, they talked about, we knew about, like the Nighthawks, the top secret aircraft. We knew about those things. Anyway, one night my sister and her man and my mom had gone down to Texas to see my oldest sister and had come back. So I was over visiting them. They lived about half a block away from us in this little apartment complex. And so I just walked over there, and I was coming back home, and I looked towards between where my house sits. There's a park, and then the city hospital, the Reedsburg Area Medical Center. And over that park, I saw these orange lights, and sitting up there somewhat high in the sky. And I'm like, what the heck is that? So I step out on the street where I can get a clear view, and here's this big, massive black triangle. This thing is like big, but it was huge. It took up the whole sky over this park. So it couldn't have been very high up in the air. I figure maybe 1,000 feet. And it was huge, pitch black, no sound. Each corner had an orange light on it. And the orange light had a split in the middle, so it looked like best way to describe it is it's like it was a butt, like an orange butt on each corner. And it's just sitting there. And I yelled to my sister's man. I said, "Hey, Leo, get out here, come here." And he's not hearing me, so I have to run up. This is when I could still run. I ran up to the door. I got him. He came out, and he got to see it as well as it was moving off, and it started moving towards Baraboo. But the thing was massive. It was just huge. Like I said, being in the Air Force, I had never seen anything never heard any stories about anything like that. And the funny part about it was when I went into the house after it had gone, I went in the house, and my wife said our dog Sunshine had chased something from the living room. She was barking at the ceiling all the way to the back, our back bedroom, our master bedroom, which is that line that thing took in the sky. She said the dog was barking like that, following this thing and barking. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't know there was anything else. She just wondered why Sunshine was doing that. So didn't have I didn't have a camera phone or anything to take pictures of it. And so I just drew out when I first saw it, I drew a picture of what I saw, sent that into MUFON with a report. And it was just the weirdest thing, because I always used to make fun of these guys that said, "Oh, we believe in UFOs." And like I said, I was in the Air Force. I knew about all this other stuff. Saw this thing, and now I'm a believer. You can't deny it. If it's right there in front of you, it's not making a sound. It's close to the ground, in the sky, but it's close to the ground. It's huge. We don't have that tech. We just don't have that, at least that I've experienced. And that night, my son was driving back to Stevens Point to go back to college, because I told him about it too. And that's when he said he was driving past Endeavor, Wisconsin. And he said that he's driving along the road, and all of a sudden his car just stopped. All the electronics and everything shut off, the engine shut off. And he said there was that triangle flying along above him, and it shut his car off. He said when it passed him, then his car came back on. You'd have to talk to my son about that story, because that really freaked him out. But the strange thing about this I told my dad, and this was my dad was here in hospice in our house. And I said, Dad, you wouldn't believe what I just saw. So I saw this big, massive triangle. And you know what my dad says? He says, oh, I used to see those all the time down in Texas, and they would land out in the cow pastures. He'd be like, no big deal.
Well, of
Well,
course not. He was used to it, right?
And why didn't you ever say anything about that? He said, oh, yeah, they would land all the time. And so these little people would get out of it. And he said they were doing it all the time. There's no big deal. And that shook my world. And I already knew about the paranormal stuff.
Right.
The Bigfoot thing was, like I said, that's another world shaker. Seeing this big, massive triangle, and then you talk to somebody about it, and they say, "Oh yeah, I've seen them all the time, and they landed on our property down in Texas." Like, what the heck?
And you didn't think to mention it. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, you never say anything about it. It's just,
I saw one of those actually over Lake Superior. I was out with some friends Uper light hunting, the rocks that glow with yeah. We were out on the beach looking for those, and there was no noise with it, but something caught my eye, and I looked up. It was further away, so I couldn't really tell like how far up it was, but it had the same thing, the black triangle with the orange lights on the
yeah,
corners. Exactly what you described, but it was further away. And it just sort of hovered over what looked like a peninsula and then gone.
yeah. This one, yeah, like I said, it just moved off slowly and moved towards Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Well,
And so we lost
Caribou's got its own energy field going on there.
yeah. And then my son happened to encounter on the way home because he called and told me about that story.
Wow.
So that was just weird. Just that, and to go with that, then a few months later, we happened to be driving into Reedsburg, and I found out that this area, there's a book out there on Wisconsin that has this triangle on the cover about Wisconsin UFOs or whatever. And so, but anyway, we were driving into Reedsburg one night, and here we see the same thing flying on it would be the east side of town.
Okay.
Flying low, flying over town. So that's how I wasn't so shocked by it. But what surprises me is nobody else seemed to notice it or see it. Didn't hear about it from anybody in the local area. My brother-in-law saw it. So I have a witness there. But, it's like nobody pays attention, or they just don't look at the sky, maybe.
Yeah, maybe they just don't look up. I don't know.
Yeah, they're just focused on.
Some people are afraid to come out with their stories, afraid of being criticized.
Yeah.
No, I told everybody would listen to me about it, because I got a good friend of mine he's an adopted brother. And he sees UFOs constantly. This guy is just like the guru for UFOs. He just sees them everywhere. And I don't know why that's the case. Not just triangles, but he sees other stuff. I always thought he was crazy, so I used to tease him a lot. I don't tease him. I apologize to him. I said, hey, I'm sorry. I never believed you. Now I know this is real.
Right. Right. This has been an amazing conversation. I want to thank both of you. Like, this has just been crazy amazing. Thank you for sharing your stories and making me feel a little less weirdo, I guess. Because I have a lot of paranormal experiences and some alien or UFO, not alien necessarily, experiences. But thank you both. And I also want to say to those who are listening, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. Let's get some stuff going here, because we have a lot of great content. We have a lot of great content that we want to share with you. And so share this with your friends and get that going. Rez, any final words?
Yeah. Thanks for coming on again. It was amazing getting a chance to chat with you guys. I really want to come down and spend the night at your place. As active as it is, let's get together and have a sleepover. For all our listeners out there, we greatly appreciate you. We love you to death. If you want to come on the show and talk about any of your experiences or anything like that, you can reach out to us at redroadparanormal@gmail.com or on the Red Road Paranormal Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you. Please comment below, and we answer all our comments. So other than that, thank you all for tuning in and look forward to bringing future content.
Yeah. And again, thank you, Gary and Kimberly. And Kimberly, I need to talk to you. We'll talk.
Yes. Yes. We'll talk anytime.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.